Yeah, I'd say early mistakes that I learned was sometimes I knew that I didn't have the right person, but I kept just hoping it would work out, making that hard decision to sell somebody a different career. So I would say early on, I did not let people go as early as I should have, even though I knew I'd hired wrong because I was learning how to hire. So obviously my skills weren't too good at doing that in the beginning. I learned through the process that actually it's a double negative. One, I'm hiring somebody that I don't need, is not able to do the job. And two, they're not getting ready to go to their next opportunity.
Hey, it's great to have you back for another episode of the Leadership Podcast. And today, I have a guest that is going to encourage you, equip you, and inspire you in a massive way. I want to tell you about my very good friend, Mart Green, who is the founder of Mardel Christian and Education Supply with over 40 locations and over 800 employees. Mart is the Ministry Investment Officer of Hobby Lobby, a business started by his family with over 1,000 stores across the United States. He is one of the most successful business leaders, truly, that I know anywhere in the world, and one of the biggest forces for good, making a difference in the world. Mart has a new book out called Learning to be Loved. I'll show you the book if you're watching. It's a great book, The Everyday Believer's Guide to a Rich Relationship with God. Outside of all of these business and ministry accomplishments, this is one of the most humble men that I know, one of the most generous men alive today, and full of integrity. It's an honor to have you on. Mart, on one hand, I've got 5 trusted voices that I call when I need good advice, and you are on that hand as one of the 5 top most trusted voices. And so I'm really excited to introduce you to our leadership community. Welcome aboard.
Well, thank you, Craig. And you've given me a lot of advice in my life. So I have less than 5 I get that from.
Well,
one of them, so
maybe I've given you advice before you ask, and that's not one of my weaknesses. But it's really, I'm really glad to have you on, and I want to hear a lot of your story. But one of the things I like to ask early on, because it's interesting to hear from our guest, was there a time in your life, maybe early on, before you had any of the success that you see, that you recognize, oh, wait a minute, maybe I have some leadership gifts or the ability to make a difference in people's life? Do you remember the first time you recognized that?
Yeah, that'd probably be when I was 19, and the situation was Hobby Lobby did start in our home. I was 9 years old when my dad went and borrowed $600. And so when you borrow $600, you got to use child labor and free labor. And so mom was free labor and we were the child labor. So we glued frames for 7 cents each. And this let Hobby Lobby grow slowly, one store at a time. And I was actually at college, and I called my dad one time, and I was just talking to my dad. Was an entrepreneurial gifting. He talked about open a barbecue stand and different things, and none of that was interesting to me. But he talked about Christian bookstores. And so I called him back a week later. So, are you really going to do that someday? He says, well, if you'll come home, I'll help you get a loan. So I was going to college. He wasn't help paying for it. So I was going to semester, working a semester. So I'll just go home next semester. I'll work and I'll try this thing. So when you're 19 and you start a new business, you realize everybody's looking to you for all the questions, all the answers. It's not always easy because they're looking for the boss. They're like, when I didn't give the answer they wanted, when somebody come in, they didn't give the answer they wanted. Well, I want to meet your boss. And I'm like, well, I'm the top of the list. I am the leader.
So we've had a lot of meals together, spent a lot of time together. I did not realize you were 19.
Yeah. So that's why I said a little bit crazy. So I came home, have no clue what I was doing. I learned a little bit from my dad, obviously. In
so
retail,
tell me the story of starting. What did that look like?
Yeah, first it looked like finding a location. So I drove through Oklahoma City, our hometown here, and I found a location, and it was 6,000 square feet. At that time, I thought that's too big for a Christian bookstore. So my dad said, well, put office supply in. I hate going to office supply. That was before Office Max, Office Depot, all this. And so now I have to learn the Christian industry, and now I got to learn office supplies. At 19, you don't know much about either one of those. And so I was thrown into the fire, and trucks would back up with all this stuff. I had no clue what a hanging file folder frame was, all that. So
I'm curious, you had no experience.
Well, I had 10 years. Remember, I started at 9 gluing frames. So give me credit.
You were an expert. You were a frame gluer. You had great frame gluing skills. So typically when you start a business, you have to understand a little bit about cash flow. You got recruiting people, creating systems, creating a culture. What were some of the first things that you learned that you didn't know when you were starting out?
The importance of people, getting the right people, right? So, and then when you're 19, you're just looking for somebody who comes in the door And then you get a little more discerning. How do you find the right people? Obviously, it's easy to find people your age. When you're 19, you wind up hiring people not too far from your age. Well, sometimes that worked, sometimes it didn't. So then how do I attract somebody with more maturity, more experience than I had?
And talk to me about that, because we've got a lot of younger people in our community. How do you do it? If you're 19, 20, 21, 22, and you're recruiting someone that's older or leading someone that's older, how do you do that well?
Well, in the end, you have to empower them, I think, and stuff like that. So they have to believe that, so you're looking for people, you find out they got skills, they got competency, the things that you're looking for, and you just say, hey, come on, let's take a risk together. So you have to convince them why they wanted to work in retail. Maybe they had retail experience in other places. Maybe they had a bad experience, whatever. And so, but I learned early on, if I didn't empower them, it wasn't too hard though when you're 19, right? Because most everybody has more experience than you do. And so the good news, it was easy for me to empower others because I needed to learn from them. And I did learn a lot from my dad. I only want to honor that. I got to work under him. I got to saw him work. He had been in retail all of his life. He worked in high school years in retail. So I just learned a lot about people, how to take care of people. So
early mistakes. What all of us, you learn from what you do wrong. What's one or two that stands out to you? And then I want to ask you, what'd you do right? And maybe you didn't even know that was so right. First of all, what'd you learn from those early mistakes?
Yeah, I'd say early mistakes that I learned was sometimes I knew that I didn't have the right person, but I kept just hoping it would work out, making that hard decision to sell somebody a different career. So I would say early on I did not let people go as early as I should have, even though I knew I'd hired wrong because I was learning how to hire. So obviously my skills weren't too good at doing that in the beginning. And so that would be one early lesson, again, that I learned.
So you agree or disagree? A lot of times when anyone's starting out a business or a ministry, it's really hard to be 100% perfect on early hires. And if you don't make relatively quick corrections, it can be difficult to overcome. Comment.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's where I made my mistake. So yes, I hired some really good people, thank goodness, but I hired some that weren't. And again, I just think, they'll get better. I'll try. Or again, just the disappointment of having to tell them that they don't have a job because you hired them, you brought them on. So you feel that sense of obligation. But I learned through the process that actually it's a double negative. One, I'm hiring somebody that I don't need, is not able to do the job. And two, they're not getting ready to go to their next opportunity. So I realize, sometimes letting people go to their next opportunity actually is a favor both to myself, right, as well as to them.
So I want to just slow it down because I want people to hear what you just said, that if you've got someone that's not the right fit, then letting them go is, you said, a favor to them as well as yourself. And that's actually really, really true. And we're both people of faith, and so we might even say if the person isn't where God would want them to be, and we leave them there, then that's really not being fair to them, not being obedient. And so I think I want to highlight that because what I know right now is there's a lot of people that are listening that would have someone, and they're tolerating what is maybe underperformance or a bad attitude, a bad mindset. And not only does it hurt the organization, but it's going to hurt the other people that see you tolerating it. And ultimately, it actually does hurt the person that you're not being fair to. And so you said it quickly, but I just wanted to highlight it because it took me a while to learn that. Yeah. Early on, you had to do some things right, maybe intuitively, maybe accidentally. What were some of the things that in the early years of building what's now so many stores, across the country? What were the big pieces that you got right that helped create a foundation to build on?
For me, what I needed really, I think, was learning. I had to go out and really learn a lot. So I didn't know the best-selling books. I didn't know a lot of stuff. And that's back before we had computers. So I had microfiche. So I'm getting microfiche in. I'm going down the library, just working really hard to understand the industries I was getting into, which is the Christian industry and the office supplies. Because again, I came in with no information on either one of them. Outside, I had a Kirkbride Bible, maybe, Thompson Chain Bible at that time. So I think working hard was part of that, and just being a lifelong learner. I always want to learn. I've always been a lifelong learner, and so I just feel like jumping in and learning about that and making some mistakes. And like I say, some of the mistakes I made, I held on too long with employees. Others, I was easier for me to move on and say, "Whoa, that doesn't work. Let's move on from that."
Talk to me about the learning part. Where do you go? What helps you to continue to grow? Even years later, to this day, we can't meet. If we met once a week, every week you'd come in with a new theory, with a new something you're working on. Tell me about what goes into your personal growth strategy.
early on for the business, I would go to other Christian bookstores. I'd find out where the best Christian bookstores. I just call my reps. Hey, you sell books? Who's the best in the country? Okay, I'm flying all over this country, just going and looking and learning. And it was huge for me because sometimes your brain is a certain size, but I wanted to go stretch my brain, see something, see the best. And so that's what helped me as far as the Mardel stores.
And what about today? When you are, you're at the top of your game in many fields, and we're going to talk about some of the different fields because you started in retail and you scaled that up and went through different seasons from starting to, whitewater through to sustaining, recreating, keeping it fresh, and then you branched out from there. But I'm just in the meantime now today, all these years later, at the top of many different fields. What is your growth strategy look like to keep sharpening yourself?
Yeah, again, it's tapping into other people, whether it's through their books. A lot of time it's through books because I don't know people and all that stuff. I listen to the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast. And so even through COVID, there's a phenomenal podcast you had right in the middle of it. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? I mean, this is, if you want leadership, it was right in the middle of COVID and you had a podcast that came out that spoke very deeply to me. And so it's just listening to others, picking it up. And sometimes you get it from younger people, because now the world has changed. I didn't grow up in the digital world, so I'm learning from them.
So you're saying what's true, but it's incomplete because there's so much more to it. When you read a book, tell me your process because I know it, and it's just you're just saying you learn from books. There's more to it. Tell me what you do when you read a book.
All right. When I read a book, I highlight it, and then I go back and I mark my favorite quotes. And then my executive assistant takes my favorite quotes of a book, so type them up, make 5 copies of them, and put them in a binder. And then when my 4 kids I have 4 children, they're all married now. They got 13 binders of over 1,000 books that I've read and my favorite quotes. Now, I don't humor myself that they've read them, but maybe when I die someday, they'll go back and look and say, oh, there's the years he was involved with this or that. Because you can see, because a lot of times I do like to learn. I learn easier probably by books and learn that way than people. Because I'm more of an introvert, but I love to learn from people too. And so, but they'll see that where I learned a lot in life was reading other people's
Okay, so here's
books.
what I want to highlight about that, because you have, Mart, what I would consider, I could probably list, if I worked on it, probably 15 things that are like oddly unique about you that are brilliant, kind of weird, like literally kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to copy those because I'm not you. And so I don't want to try to bring out of you those weird things and tell our community, like, you all need to go be like Mart. But what I do want to do is I want to highlight them so they can say, what are those weird things that I need to do that help me grow or become better or become sharper? And so let's just look back what you do. You read a book, you highlight it, you go back through, pick out your favorite. And I've looked at your favorite quotes, and it's not just like 4 quotes. It's like 20% of the book sometimes. Sometimes it can be 20% of the book. And then you document it, and you said you gave over 1,000 basically book summaries or book highlights to your kids, and you have those accessible. And so if I ask you, and I have before, I'm going to take a week off, hey, what do you recommend I read? Yep. And you can, then what do you have for me? Besides recommendations, you've got summaries. Yep. And you've also read over 1,000 books that you thought were noteworthy. So that says a lot.
Yeah. Just today, earlier, I was talking to a guy and we got to conversation and I said, I'll send you my favorite quotes, Then I'll say, hey, if you want to read the book, fine. But if not, at least get the favorite quotes. But they come back to me. And so I've learned so much from other people.
And then you'll probably revisit those at times. And I also like what you said, you're an introvert. And so that you learn better that way. And so what I try to get our community to do is see how you're wired and designed and then go create a plan that works best for you in that way. I'd like to hear about some of the other things that are unusual that help make you into the leader that you are. One of the things is if we had a special moment together at some point or had a conversation or whatever, you would be able to bring that back up and would over and over again. Tell me about how you document why you do it, what that means to you, how you would use it relationally. What's the process look like that in your life?
Yeah, I guess it goes back to another weakness, because my weakness on reading books is I wish I could remember what I read. And that's why I get the quotes and go back to them. So when I meet people for the first time, usually I'll document when we met them, what the occasion was, and maybe 2 or 3 facts about them. They've been married for 30 years. They got 3 kids or whatever. And so yeah, I've done that on hundreds of people. And so but I can't remember them. So my brain, I have to keep my phone with me, because if I don't have my phone with me, I've lost my brain. But it just tells me to remember, to go back. And but there's other people who have photographic memory. I don't have that, so I know I don't. So I'm never going to. I can't practice my way to that. So I overcome my weakness by trying to document things.
And the why would be obvious to some people, but not to everyone. Why would you do that when most people don't?
Well, I think it's
motivation?
honoring. Yeah, I think it's honoring to people, and I've learned that friendships are one of the greatest gifts that God gives us. You know, and so how do I be a good friend? To know something about you, to be able to remember that. Now, I wish I could remember it on my own, and so I don't. But I think a trusted friendship is what I say is one of the greatest gifts God gives us. So I want to be a trusted friend, and so.
Okay, so and again, you say it, and it's so natural to you, but I want to highlight it. Trusted friendship is one of the greatest gifts that God can give us. And there is no doubt that, let's call it success, let's call it God-honoring activities, whatever it is, the impact you have in life is 100% a direct result of the relationships that you have over and over and over again.
Absolutely.
And so you value them, and not just the people that can give you something, but you value people. And I'd like to hear a little bit of the heart behind it, because I've learned from you, watching you, and you've made me better. Just kind of help me understand why it matters so much to treat people the way that you feel like they're worthy of being treated. Yeah,
I guess early on, another lesson you learn is that when you burn bridges, it lasts for a long, long time. So then I learned, I've had situations that didn't work out well. I mean, it was tough, but I've learned never to burn that bridge, to still keep half the bridge up. So I want to keep half the bridge up. You may never come back, but how do you do that? So that's to all people. It's even your enemies, if you would, or what feels like enemies. And so, because you just never know. And it's crazy. It is crazy how many times, 10 years later, 15 years later, something that happened way back then, and because I didn't burn the bridge like I did when I was younger, it actually came back. And not only was it healed, it became a huge advantage to me. So I have several stories where I thought that was over and it's done, that, wow, God restored that relationship and it helped me move forward. But I never know when that's going to happen. So how do you treat everybody well? And I think that's the best way to do it.
See, I don't think you would describe this the way I would, but when I observe you and I admire this about you, my observation, and it would be incomplete, but it seems like you have a unbelievable focus on genuinely caring for the people in front of you. And yet there also seems to be like a little bit of a chess strategy to it, meaning like you want to care for them for no other reason than care for them, but you've always got like long-term motives that are for good outside of yourself, that it might be that I might just be kind to this person and never see him again, or I might be kind to this person and 12 years from now we actually do something significant together. Is there any kind of like a long-term plan, heart? It seems like it, but I'm kind of curious, is it just natural? Like, can you put skin on that for me?
Well, I wish I was smart enough to figure that all out, right, for the future. So because there's lots of people I've been kind to and nice to and tried to keep the bridge, and I never see them again. And so I just trust that's not my responsibility. I just want to do the right thing. How do I go do the next right thing? How do I treat people well? I want to be treated well. I've made mistakes. I hope people will give me a second chance. And I've had people that wouldn't give me a second chance. And it grieved my heart because I thought, I could have done better if you just could have seen me differently, because I made a mistake the first time. And so, but yeah, I don't think I'm smart enough to manipulate or even make those things happen. I just know that they do. I've seen them happen.
See, what's interesting is, and it's hard to describe, but there are gift givers that feel manipulative. And you kind of know, like, hey, they're giving you something because they kind of want something. There are gift givers that feel genuine. And you have a real unique ability to give what I would call very personal and genuine gifts that you put a lot of thought into. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. Well, I just through time, I just in praying or thinking about people, I think, well, what's something symbolic? I like symbolic things. I got stuff on my body. When I run, every piece of clothing has symbolics to it. So I'm a very symbolic person. So when I give a gift, I like to think of something that's symbolic. Who's this person? What is it that I could say to them? How could I connect to their heart? And so I want it to be a symbolic gift. Yeah, there can be a nice gift. And yeah, I don't want it ever to be to get something back. I do want it to be an honoring gift, because I've been in that situation where I'm trying to figure out, now, is this a gift or is this an obligation that I'm getting? I just got into.
What's really meaningful is that you've brought things to me, and some of the most meaningful gifts didn't really cost a lot of money, but they were very, very thoughtful. And all the way down to, and again, this is so second nature to you, but there are, how many anniversaries of something do you think that you would remember about me if you're just kind of following in your normal routine?
Yeah, quite a few of them.
Quite a few, right?
Yeah, quite a few.
And I don't have anybody else that would do that. And there's nothing manipulative about it, because I really don't have anything to give you. All we have is the opportunity to do things together. And when you started treating me well, we had no strategy together. There were just two people in the same town that kind of had a common faith, but nothing else.
Yeah.
And so that to me is what I'm trying to bring out. And I feel like I'm way undervaluing what you do, but you meet with people, you find out what they care about, you find out what's going on in their life, you document it, and the next time you're there, you will ask them about it. You might bring them a book about it. You might have a gift that has something about it. And it's consistent, it's pure in motive, it's rare, and it's meaningful. I'm going to ask you a question. There may not be an answer to this, but is there a story behind it? Is there a something in life that just created that in you that it's not everybody else?
Great question. I've never thought of it, and I'll have to think longer about it because nothing comes to my mind at the very top. I just maybe seeing my family being that way. I mean, I just saw my mom and my dad always care for people. And so, probably it's hereditary, and they saw their parents do that. And so I've heard story about my grandmother and her gift of generosity. My grandmother had no wealth. She'd have 2 dresses and she'd give one away. And so she gave her a gift. She figured out the value of it because she wanted to pay tithes. Because she thought she ought to pay tithes on her increase. So that's just she just loved people. She loved the Lord, and so because she understood how much she was loved, it was easy for her to love. So I would, if I had to go back to anything, I think it was modeled for me through a couple of generations of the people that I got to see.
And I would say that's true too. Like, so long before I knew your family, I was 22, maybe 23, graduated from college. I was a new follower of Jesus and kind of felt called to ministry, but nobody was calling. Right? So I took a job with Honeywell selling security systems, and what's crazy is I went to your family's house and had no reason to remember them whatsoever, besides I remembered them. It wasn't like, hey, these are the Mardel Hobby Lobby people. They were just really kind people. And the culture in their house was so distinct that I remembered it. And years later, when they became more well-known for both their business success and ministry success, then I was like, well, that was the family, whatever. And so culturally, that family, their home, the values, the way they treated me stood out when I was nothing but basically a door-to-door sales guy. And so I think that's some of that is just who you are, and it really is special. I wanted to, there's no way to describe what all you're involved in, and this is what one of the things I learned from you is how do you have multifaceted impact in many different areas. So you founded and built a retail chain. You work with a family that founded and built another and bigger retail chain. You've been involved with a ministry, Every Tribe, Every Nation. You produced movies. You assisted your brother and helped in, he spearheaded launching the Museum of the Bible, and you're in that orbit. You're working today on the Runaway hit series. Somehow now you're in the middle of The Chosen and helping lead that. You partner with Illuminations and YouVersion. You're strategic friend and generous partner of the YouVersion Bible app. You're probably you and Bobby Grunwald would be the two biggest advocates that I know, and arguably two of the biggest in the world for getting God's word out. You continue to lead efforts of generosity across the world. You help people nonstop. How in the world do you do all that?
It goes back to the original thing I talked about, good people, surrounding myself. And I'll never forget one of the quotes I steal from you, and I'm obsessed with empowering the right people. Not just people, but how do you find the right people? So professionally, I have one prayer, and it's based on Luke 10:2. So people say, how can I pray for you? Well, I have family issues. I can pray for that. But professionally, there's only one prayer. The harvest is plentiful, but the harvest hands are few. Pray for harvest hands. And so I'm always praying. I mean, right now I'm looking for some board members, different things.
So interesting. You're praying for the right people.
Right people.
All the time.
All the time.
I probably should do that. I feel like I'm actually blessed with the right people in the right places. I'm always praying for wisdom. And so it might be a question I might add to is like, what are you always praying for? So you're always praying for the right people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I love empowering people, and so I don't have to do everything myself. I've learned that a long, long time ago. Now, when I was at Mardel and I was the founder and I ran that business, there was a lot of weight to that because I was in charge and had 800 employees, all those kind of things. Now I'm in a situation where I'm just helping empower, coming alongside, whether it's Bobby here at YouVersion. How can I help him? How can I add value to him? Other projects I've started have a little bit more weight to them, but I'm usually working myself out. I know I'm kind of working myself out of a job, so I'm always looking for people, which is so fun because you see people, they grow and all that. Some people can be micromanagers and try to take control of things. That's not my natural personality, so that's fun for me.
Would you? And I've never thought of this, but you actually, you were also involved in some what I call like rescue projects of big, visible institutions, and you did work yourself out of that. Are you, in most cases, when you start, do you think this is a project I might have long-term oversight on, but I want to be in and out? I want to make a difference and work myself out? Do you have that mindset going into most things?
Yeah, I do now because I gave up Mardel that I'd done for 35 years to be available, and so that's kind of where I'm at. And there's some things I stay with longer. Bible translation I've been with for 15 years, and I'm 2033. I'm going to be with it for at least another 8 years, trying to reach a goal. But so I kind of trying to figure out what's my identity, and I try to get it down to a couple of words, and through a long process, transformational unifier. So if I had to get myself down to 2 words, it'd be a transformational unifier.
So explain that to me in more detail.
So transformation means you got to transform something. You got to do things differently than what it was before. And yet at the same time unify. So the words are almost, seems like they're opposed to each other, but then how do you unify it? So I think of a bridge. And so a bridge, how do you bring 2 sides together to get something done that would not get done separately? And I will be in it, and it will be in me, but it doesn't need me anymore, right? And so that's what I'm trying to define those projects, just like YouVersion. That doesn't necessarily need me, but I'm helping them to bridge. In the case, Bible translation, that were needed.
So this is a crazy question, but I'm starting to get clarity. It's interesting. I've asked you a million questions before, and now I'm at this moment, I'm getting clarity. Your transformative unifier, that's true. You always have some kind of exterior motive, meaning it's never for you, which is so odd. Like it's always moving something else, usually a ministry or a mission forward, and you're always doing it with connecting people. You're always in the middle of, have you met this person? Have you met that person? And the interesting part is there are others who do it, but it's usually about building something I care about or building something for me, and yours seems to be others focused. Is that something you can do early, or do you have to have handed off the stores to do it? Like, talk to me about someone else who wants to create that type of impact.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, we all have different kind of personality. So like I said, for me, it's kind of a natural deal. I saw my dad. I was 19, right? He helped me go get a loan. How many dads are going to help their 19-year-old son get a loan? Now I felt a huge obligation to that. And so I think people empowering others is a huge gift. You've spoken about it in your leadership podcast. You can't be a micromanager. You have to empower people. You've got to do that. Otherwise, you're gonna choke that out. Now, some people only want a certain size, and maybe that's all they're supposed to be is a certain size. And not everything has to grow to 1,000 stores. And so there's nothing wrong with not being an empowering of people. But if you want to grow in certain ways in certain places, then you're going to have to empower people.
Okay, so tell me about the people you're looking for. What are the qualities that are going to make a good, trusted team member or even trusted friend?
Yeah. So that was a long process, but I kind of got into three words, and they're G, H, and I. So I like to keep things simple. G is generous. I'm looking for people who are generous because I feel like that helps defeat one of Satan's tricks, which is the lust of the eyes. I'm looking for somebody who has humility, which beats the Satan's trick of the pride of life. So I want people to be humble, and then the lust of the flesh would be integrity. So if you can find me, these are the 3 character traits: somebody who's generous, somebody has humility, and somebody who's integrity. Those are my friends.
So crazy question. Did you pick those qualities and then realize they happen to be the opposite of the temptations, or did you back in? How'd you come up with those? Yeah.
Well, Randy Alcorn had talked about the 3 that Satan has. Satan created nothing, so he had to corrupt something. So he gave the neutrals. I said, Randy, you left me hanging here. I know the neutral. There's nothing wrong with your possessions. There's nothing wrong with power. There's nothing wrong with pleasure. Those 3 P's. But I know the negatives to them, but I got to know the positives. So that's where I said, no, I have to know the antidote. So I just prayed about it, thought through it, and said, well, how do you do that? And I thought about my grandmother. Well, she's generous. You don't have to worry about her. The lust of the eyes, she had no problem with that. People who are humble don't have a problem with pride. People who have integrity don't have with the lust of the flesh. And so, and they just happen to work out to G, H, and I, which I kind of like.
What's interesting is when I feel you helping me, so like we're having a conversation, and maybe I've got a personal issue I'm asking about, or I'm wrestling with, I'm trying to grow to the next stage. I actually feel you leading me in those areas, and it kind of asks me questions toward those. And what's interesting is I would pick humility, and I would pick integrity, and like bringing a team member on. Generosity, I actually love the value of generosity. I would not have put that in my top list, but now that you say it really makes a lot of sense that would be a quality that is going to be, there's no way to be mission-minded if you are selfish. There's no way to be helping others if you are selfish. And so I appreciate that. You mentioned the lust of the eyes, and that wouldn't just mean like lusting after someone as after a person. Yeah, I think you're even referring to it as like the lusting after the things of this world. And so what's interesting is when you treat people well, when you surround yourself with good people, when you have good ideas, you tend to create value, and often you end up making money. And is that a good thing, bad thing? Talk to me about what do you do with wealth?
Yeah, no, I think excellence is what we all are striving for, and excellence can bring that. How do you get mission fulfillment with economic sustainability?
Now, as a Christian, is there something wrong with making a lot of money?
No, okay. I don't think so.
Okay,
right?
You don't think so? Which one?
No.
Okay,
sorry,
making sure. Okay.
I know. So
if you're going to be gray with me, I don't know.
Right.
So, no, nothing wrong with it. Okay,
nothing wrong with making money. Yeah. And so, and in our case, we like to make more money because we give more money away. That's our motivating factor. We've not taken raises for 10 or 15 years now, because God's done well for us. We don't feel sorry for me. There's nothing wrong with that. But what motivates us? Why do we put another store in? Why do we put 30 more stores? That's just 30 more headaches that we're going to have, because we love to give and we love to be generous. And we think if you do business excellence, you can do business with excellence, and you can make money. And God actually gave us work. Now, the fall made work hard, but I think there's always been work. And so we get fulfillment in our work.
So based on what I read in studies, it seems that sometimes when people make more money, the percentage of what they give doesn't always go up. No. In fact, it often goes down. What would you say to somebody that is in that place that they are blessed maybe more than they expected?
Yeah.
What to talk about responsibility or do they have them? And you got GHI. I think you also have another EROI, which is a little different. You might go there. You might speak into that if it works.
Yeah. Recently, I read a quote from Albert Einstein. He said he found the 8th great wonder of the world. I thought, what's the 8th great wonder of the world? One of the smartest guy ever. And he said compound interest. I'm going, compound interest. Yeah, it's very powerful. If you take $1,000 and put it under a pillow and come back 40 years later, it's going to be worth a whole lot less than $1,000. Yep. All right. If you get simple interest, it's worth 3 times as much. If you get compound interest, it's like 15 times. So compound interest is very powerful. I thought, wow, if he'd have met Jesus like I have, he'd have said compound generosity. Because I believe compound generosity grows. So there's a lot of people who are holding their money, they're not doing stuff with it. I'm saying it's like putting them under the pillow, put it to work, because I do believe we're eternal beings. I do believe you can't take it with you, but you can send it on ahead. So there are verses throughout the Bible that talks about God rewards. Now, some people think it's here and now. I think, no, it's there and later, and I'd rather have it there and later. So I'm kicking as much stuff as I can to eternity, because eternity is a whole lot longer than maybe the 100 years. Even if I lived 100, I'll be lucky, right? But eternity is forever. So yeah, I'm encouraging people, store up your treasures on the other side, because yes, there's ROI, as a business person, return on investment, but I realize it's eternal return on investment. So I want an EROI. What's going to matter 10,000 years from now?
So being successful well is challenging. Having a lot of wealth and managing it well and is really, really hard to do. It's one of the reasons I would not want to be you, because a lot of people come to you with a lot of ideas. Invest in this, give toward this, invest in this. Put your time toward this. How do you determine if someone or some idea is worthy of any type of investment, be it time, finances? What do you look for before you give your most valuable resource, your time, or you invest in it both to help them grow, or just invest in it, be generous? What are you looking for?
Yeah, it's a dynamic process, as you could imagine. And yes, wealth has its issues. Now, it doesn't have the issue. I know where my food's coming from, my shelter and all that. So I'm blessed. But then you feel this stewardship responsibility. Where do you give that money? In our case, we actually have 7 family members. We've all worked together for nearly 50 years that make those decisions. So the other good news is there's more than one. But I say stewardship for us has 3 H's to it. One, a steward is generous. Well, that's your heart, right? You see something, you see a need, and you want to meet it. And so we all have that inside of us. If a child falls down, we help pick them up. That's a generous act. And so that's your heart. But then you learn that sometimes people can tell you stories that aren't true, all right? And so you used your heart, and it was a heart-wrenching story, but come to find out, none of the money went where you said it was. So then you use your head. That's discerning. So I think good stewardship is both your heart and your head, and discerning and generosity. So that's good stewardship. And then for us, we believe the Holy Spirit actually can prompt us. And so there are different times that we've given to certain places because we felt like the Lord tapped somebody's heart, and we'd have to say, hey, look, I just feel like maybe we should do this, but there's 6 more of you guys. Let's all pray together. And so there's been a few places where that's the way we gave.
Yeah, and again, I want to highlight these because this is good. You know, your heart really does matter. What do you care about, and where your heart goes, where your treasure goes, your heart follows. And then your head really matters a lot too, because I know a lot of people have big heart and no head. I come go like, use your head. If this organization's in trouble 7 years in a row and you're always bailing them out, they're probably getting in trouble 8 years in a row. So like use your head. And then the prompting of the Spirit. Those are really good guidelines for making a difference. And so you could invest money. You also invest your time. And I'm just kind of curious, if you had a totally empty day on your calendar, which would be probably non-existent, but if you did, and you could go invest your time doing anything, what would you do?
I would invest it making sure that people get God's word translated in their heart language. And so that's my heart. That's my deepest heart longing, because our family mission statement, we have a business mission statement, and you should, and that's very important to have a mission statement. That we sat down and had one for our family, because all of a sudden my kids are marrying in. Our family went from my mom and dad, who were 2, now there's 47 of us, all living in Oklahoma City. So we said, wow, we better get a mission statement. So it's to love God intimately and live extravagant generosity. And so to love God intimately, the number one way I know how to love God is through His Word. And so if I want that for my kiddos, then I have to want it for all this world. And when I found out that everybody didn't have God's Word in their heart language, it became a driving force for me. See,
I am so fascinated and so nerdy that I'm always listening to actually hear, and I'm listening to study. So the whole time I'm going, okay, I can use this, my head, my heart, and the Holy Spirit. I can use that. GHI, generosity, humility, integrity. I can use all that. And then I'm going, I see a common theme, which is like filters or structures of intentionality. Meaning you're almost not coming into hardly any situations where you don't have some framework of decision-making that kind of shapes what you do. It's deep values that you know what you stand for, and then it's a clear direction that this is what we're going to try to accomplish. And then there's a strategy that can be vibrant and flexible along the way, but most people don't have those things. Does that come naturally to you? Do you have to work on it? Why do you seem to have clarity when so many people don't?
That's a great question. it feels like it comes somewhat naturally for me. And again, modeled through my family and just, again, thinking eternally. We always think about eternity. Think about 10,000 years from now. What's going to matter 10,000 years from now? And so when you think that way, it automatically kind of makes you make decisions a certain way, I think. Some things become frivolous and stuff like that. Yeah, we go have fun. We go to basketball games. We do this. It's not like we do everything that's serious and all that kind of stuff. But at the bottom of my mind and thinking through, I'm thinking about eternity. I'm thinking about others. And I've got a mission statement to love God intimately and live extravagant generosity. And so how do I do that in my family? And how do I make sure that others who want to can do the same thing?
Well, I am obviously a pastor, and so my whole mission is driven to make a difference in people's lives. And then there's this podcast, which is kind of what I call a complementary lane, meaning that I just love good leadership, and I feel like it not only does it help empower what we do missionally, but I love leadership, period. And so the purpose of this podcast is actually not to push my faith, our faith on people. And I hope people believe me when I say that. At the same time, there's no way to have you on here without you. You can't not talk about your faith. Yeah. And I would never want to rob you from that, because that is who you are, and I share your faith passionately. The book, Learning to be Loved, the everyday believer's guide to a rich relationship with God. There are so many people that think, okay, Mart Green, you've built like ministry, empires, business, whatever. Aren't you going to write about that? And yet you're not. Tell me the story behind the book.
Yeah, I was a co-author, David Bowden, another gentleman. He lives in Oklahoma City. Came to me and he said, "Mart,
incredibly talented,
guy, talented guy,
ridiculously
spoken
talented.
gospel." He said, "Mart, whenever you talk about God, it seems like he's chasing you down. In my life," he says, "I always feel like I have to earn God's love." And when he said that, I said, "Well, I never thought about it that way." And when our family came up with Love God Intimately, Live Extravagant Generosity as our mission statement, I started saying, well, how do you do that? How do you get intimate with God? And so over time, it took me 5 or 10 years, I wrote down 31 different ways, all right? I call them gateways to intimacy. Well, he'd seen that document, and he kind of writes theologically from that perspective. And he was learning that God does pursue him, and that's why it's called Learning to be Loved, the book. And so he said, "Mart, I'll write theology and some of that if you'll write 20 stories." So he asked me to take 20 of my 31 gateways of intimacy and just write about stories about those. So I wrote about 20% of the book. David wrote the rest of it, and I'm glad.
I want to do one of those books where I write 20%.
Yeah, I know. Of it. Well, I told people I wouldn't write books. I sell books. I said, no, I don't write books. I sell books. So he happened to hit me on the one subject that he could do it, and he wrote 80% of it.
So is there a story that you wrote about that kind of stands out as something that's super meaningful to you?
Yeah. I mean, there's several that they're very important to me. I guess there would be one that I'd like to I would share probably, and it's called wounds, because a lot of times people don't think that wounds can be a way to intimacy with God. So what's my wound story? Well, I got married. I found my wife in 9th grade, pursued her for 6 years, and finally she agreed, and we got married a few years later. And 43 years later, she's been my wife with 4 kiddos. But we in our marriage, we had some complications and stuff along the way. And so we'll get it worked out. And then my son started marrying. There's some of the same problems. I got to get these people fixed, right? So I brought a coach in to fix, help my wife and help, some of my kids who are marrying these people that I didn't raise, right? And so they come, they talk about trust. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, trust. I'm a pretty good trust builder. That God's gifted me with that. And then he asked, how are you with emotional trust? And I'm like, whoa, just a second here. First of all, I don't know what you're talking about. Emotional trust. Why is that? Well, Mart, do people trust you with their emotions? And I'm like, oh my gosh, So as we dug deeper in that, I realized that when my wife came to me with her emotions, I just naturally, because since I was 19 years old, every time somebody brings me a problem, they want me to fix it, right? And so I'm trying to fix it. And he says, she doesn't want you to do that. She wants you to go down in the well with her. And I'm like, well, no, I'm not going down the well with her. I'm trying to get her up out of that well. No, she wants you to feel what she feels. Her feelings are real and stuff like that. And so through a process, so that's one of my deep wounds, is realizing I hurt some of my family members. I had to go back, especially the more artistic they were, because they live out of their feelings, that I realized that I'd hurt them because of my personality, because I just assumed everybody's like me, right? And they're not. And so that deep wound of realizing that she didn't want me to fix it. So how can I let people trust me with their emotions? Am I a safe place for people to come with their emotions? And so because
what's interesting is like I see that in you, meaning you're a fixer, but to this day you do seem to leave a safe space for people to express emotion. So I think you've grown in it.
Yeah, but you know me in the later years in the earlier years, and so that's a wound. So so anyway,
we could spend hours talking about that in marriage, because that's a real important issue. But there are other podcasts to do that. So I'm going to bring it back to like organizational leadership. One of the biggest problems is the more successful you become, the harder it is to have a realistic view of how you come across. Right, you lose self-awareness. Talk to me about how you've grown in that way. When people see you now, you're kind of, you're just so well respected, revered, almost like a legend. And so people, when they walk in, they might be really nervous. How do you do to emotionally connect when people might be even hesitant to be themselves?
Yeah, the power dynamics are real. You know, even though you don't feel them or you want to, people know, oh, you have a lot of money or you've done these kind of things, so they kind of feel that. You don't feel that toward yourself, but it's there. So for me, I've realized that if I can just let my voice come last as best I can, you know, so that, because once the leader says something, then it almost sets the pace of the room and stuff like that. And there's times to do that, but when you're trying to collaborate, which a lot of what I'm trying to do now is to leverage giving and collaborate, that's transformational unifier, then if I don't watch it, if I speak too early, then I've kind of killed new ideas. So I usually try to be the last one to speak as best I can, so that I know that I'm hearing real thoughts, and then honoring those thoughts again. Before, I would not have understand the emotions and all those kind of things. Yes, emotions sometimes can get out of control, of course, and some there's times you need to work on that. But to understand what's happening behind that, there's something behind that emotion. So how do you get that? But I think probably one of the things I've tried to learn over time is just be real slow about speaking, which is not, I mean, because you got ideas, you want to share them and you put them out there, but I realize that I kill other people's ideas.
It's interesting because I think most leaders, if you ask them, they would probably say you do set the tone, you go first, and there are definitely times you do that. But I think you're right, especially the more you want to empower people and the more collaborative you want to be, the more you have to intentionally work to not speak first. And then let me ask you about this too. One thing I've noticed is like the bigger our organization gets, the more I have to accept things outside of my preferences. Because if I try to control everything, I'm going to limit some things. Do you find that true? Could you agree? Do you disagree? What?
Yeah, and there's pros and cons to it. There's pros because, wow, better ideas come up and you get to go through that. And sometimes things happen and you have to realize you got to come back and pull that back in because now we've gotten off mission or wherever we're trying to go and all that stuff. So there's both sides of that. But yeah.
There's pros and cons to every level
That's
in
right.
it. I'd love to hear just a little bit more behind the scenes, because when I look at you, the disciplines are insane, meaning you will, 7 years from now, if we ask you what happened on this day, you'll be able to pull out details and talk to me about it. And I won't remember much of what happened today. You have your scripture reading. When's your anniversary date?
February 8th, 1998 was the start.
And how many years?
27 years.
27 years. And so I learned from you the importance of remembering those things. So I actually have that in my calendars is something and I wouldn't have done that without you, but it's you've done that for me. And so I recognize that in there. You've got, what are some of the daily disciplines or even just rhythms that you have in your life that people might not know or they might undervalue that help shape you to become the person that you are?
Yeah, I guess my morning routine would be where I start. I mean, I always want to start with some of these gateways of intimacy, and there's 3 verses I pray every morning before I read the Bible.
And before the 3 verses, some of the gateways of intimacy. What are some of the gateways?
God's word would be obviously prayer, wounds, fear. There's been times that I've had fear, but then I've learned to get closer to the Lord. Nature has been one of them. Believing that God exists. The Bible tells us you'll get closer. I just found a verse that talked about, so there's 31 different ways to do that. And so obviously I'm trying to get 2 or 3 of them in the morning, right? And then used to, I'm a very left brain person, so I don't get a lot of music in my life. But I realized that songs at different times, so every morning now I just buy an album, I just listen to 10 songs. Every year on January 1st, I give my kids the songs of the year. So last year there was 12. I give them an Apple Card. I don't humor myself. They go download the 12 songs I give them. They do it to something else.
Fair enough.
And so, but they're just songs that for some reason that day just spoke deeply to me. But I've just given myself the opportunity. And then I do things physically. I'm a runner, and so I enjoy going to spend about 30 minutes just running on a day because I feel like, that I want to take care of my spirit, my mind, and my body. And so that's part of my lifelong learning. That's why I want to keep my mind challenged, my body. So those are ways that I start my day. And so
it's interesting how taking care of your body also seems to take care of other things as well, doesn't it?
For sure.
Yeah. So the book is Learning to be Loved. It's by David Bowden and Mart Green. The subtitle, The Everyday Believer's Guide to a Richer Relationship with God. I like the theme learning to be loved because I think there are a lot of us, me included, who grew up in more of a, I'm going to perform my way to be accepted and I'm going to work my way in. And so I think I do have to learn to be loved. I want to tell you just thank you sincerely for being a true friend. And by that, meaning someone I've trusted with really intimate details of my life. You've given me a lot of good advice in pivotal times, and it's really fun to be aligned together. It was, pretty cool. So the YouVersion Bible app, was started Bobby Greenwell here in Oklahoma City. You happen to be in Oklahoma City with a really similar heart, and together we've been able to. We'll see it on 1 billion devices by later on this year, which is unbelievable. As you look forward. Tell me about what lights your fire. What makes you jump out of bed every day and say, let's attack?
Well, one of them is that YouVersion's getting ready to download the 1 billionth device coming up this year. So that gets me super excited.
We're probably gonna celebrate it a little bit.
Yeah. And I got to drive by and saw you got a new building for YouVersion, so I just know it's growing, and God's been blessing that. And then I've been excited about The Chosen. I think The Chosen, incredible television series, and because my passion for languages, we're going to help them get into 600 languages. 95% of the world speaks the top 600 languages. So there's a couple things that I'm working on right now outside of Bible translation, which I've been doing and will continue to do for years. So those are some of the most exciting things going on right now.
Well, I think that's worthy of being in a lot of different languages, and I like the fact that you many of the things you do are multilingual, meaning you're trying to reach the world, and that's a pretty special place. And it all started with a 19-year-old that was looking for a 6,000 square foot store and thought it was too big.
Yep.
So talk to someone now who is isn't in the season of the harvest yet. They're still planting the seeds. Talk to them and give them a little bit of encouragement about what's possible if they are generous, if they are humble, if they do have integrity, if they are others focused and work hard and keep the right motives, to give them a little bit of encouragement.
Yeah, and as you said, I'm a person of faith. That's obviously very obvious. But I believe God created us all with a purpose and a plan, or what I call an identity. And that's why I pushed in. That's just even the last year. What's my identity? What am I going to do? There's some things about Craig Groeschel I love. I wish I could be like you and this and that. And I realized, you know what? I don't need to be you. God didn't make me to be Craig Groeschel. I need you to be the best Groeschel possible. I need to be the best Mart Green possible. So don't compare yourself to others. Go in and find in your spirit, what is it that you were created? You have a purpose, and we all lose when you don't live your purpose out. And we try to be somebody else, we lose too. So go back in. How do you find out who you're made to be? And some of it's your natural giftings, your bents, all that stuff. It takes time. It takes talking to others. I have 6 adventure partners. I ask them, do you think I'm a transformational unifier? Does this resonate with you? And so they were able to help me process, get with others. Who am I? Where does God naturally use me? And forget trying to be Craig Groeschel. Don't try to be Mart Green. Please don't try to be Mart Green. Be who you are, because we all lose if you don't be the best identity that you should be.
And once again, you just mentioned you have 6 adventure partners.
Yeah.
And just tell me briefly about them.
About 20 years ago, I was getting over my head, so I wanted to actually I had 7 at that time. One passed through COVID. So for the last 20 years, these guys come along. They're kind of like my, if you want to call them a board, my accountability group. But these are the guys that I hold myself accountable. And so when life gets upside down, it gets crazy, these 7 guys I can call. One's a pastor, one's business, one's my neighbor. Some are out of town. So they've all got variety. A couple of them think I'm the greatest thing ever. I got a couple who prune me every single time, right? Yep. So you need guys who kind of cheer you on, and you guys who kind of prune you.
Yep.
And so, but I just call them my adventure partners, because I think life is an adventure. It's uncomfortable, you get wounded, but you can see God provide if you go on that adventure.
So I love the way you've made time for the things that matter most. A lot of times we get just sucked into whatever's yelling the loudest, and you make time for your friends, you make time to keep the mission and ministry first. And I thank you for your friendship. I thank you for your partnership and mission together. And look forward to doing it with you for years and years to come. So it's been an honor to have you on. And I want to say, just to our community, man, I hope that you can see what's special about this interview is what you've got here is you've got someone that's very, very centered, very, very grounded, very, very humble, and really with the purity of focus. And I've worked with a lot of people, and I can be self-focused at times. Like, how is this going to benefit me? And when I work with Mart and people like him, there is a motive to help and serve other people, and it's all he would tell you for the glory of God, and it is. And so, if you posture yourself that way, if you learn from him and say, I want to be generous, I want to be humble, I want to be teachable, I want to be a person of integrity, and then you assemble great people around you, it's unimaginable what you can accomplish and the difference that you can make. And so I just want to say thank you for taking the time to listen. I'm going to work really, really hard to bring content that helps you get better. And what you heard today, give yourself permission to be a little bit weird. You're not going to do the same weird things that Mart does, but press into whatever those unique disciplines are, those passions that make you uniquely you, and then let those things come out, and just know that you have more in you. 19-year-old kid could have never believed all this was possible, and what you're doing now is significant, and you're just getting started. And so thank you for growing with us, for getting better, because we know that everyone wins when the leader gets better.